for those of you in the room and those of you online to coming to our residential solar standard offer stakeholder meeting number 5. This meeting is timed for 1 hour. Start out with a safety moment here. Avoid falling into fall. Go to avoid falls. Please use cleared, textured, and lit rock walkways. Avoid wet or slick surfaces, loose rugs, mats, and other obstructions. Take note of safety signs indicating hazards. On your side, wear footwear with decently sized textured soles. Reduce your pace when approaching corners. If you've seen the bear, they always say behind and corner. That helps them avoid falling into each other in the kitchen, right? Very important. Announce yourself when approaching intersections, corners, things like that. Watch your step. When you're wearing backpacks, wear both straps for even weight distribution. Use aids such as walking sticks and handrails. Keep your hands out of your pockets just in case you fall, prop yourself, and refrain from texting while walking. Don't text while drive, don't text while walking. And one other note, flu season is upon us. If you haven't already, schedule your flu shot. Now I turn it over to our director, Tim Harvey.
Can't stress enough the importance of walking. Don't fall. It hurts. I fell a couple winters ago. I have like a little area where walking up to my house, I walk across a boardwalk and it was wet and had a thin layer of ice on it. Fell down, tried to catch myself with my hands and messed up my shoulders and they still hurt. That's not fun. Your balance peoples. So the agenda real quick, we're going to go over the commercial standard offer and the standard offer rate real quick, just to make sure everybody's on page. We're going to go over our standard offer engagement survey results, financial focus groups, and potential RFQ. And then we're going to do evaluation matrix exercise, and then we'll have some discussion after that. So the commercial standard offer, by the numbers, we are moving right along. We continue to increase these queues. So we currently have 13 encumbered projects with 8.43 megawatts moving towards construction, under construction, or being really close to interconnection. So we're really excited about that. Then we've got another 15.2 megawatts and 25 projects in the queue behind that. So they're, seeking to get to that point where they've got the addressing down, they've got their interconnection approvals. They're, getting ready to be at the point where they can go pull permits and get started on construction. So the largest encumbered project there is 1.4 megawatts AC. The smallest is 358 kilowatts. The average is 650 kilowatts, right around there. And we've got 24 registered contractors and 8 that are pending. So this is a lot of work here. I think this represents, in my mind, this is huge success for this program, more than I anticipated. And so super happy to see this taking off and that effort is bearing fruit. Now, so the rate that is stimulating these projects is the standard offer rate. The standard offer rate is a rate that Austin Energy put out in January. And what's unique about it is that this rate can go directly to third-party owners of commercial systems that are interconnected on the distribution grid. So prior to this, if to leverage benefits from the utilities for solar, you basically had to produce bill credits and be behind a customer meter. And that led to a split incentive scenario where you have building owners that might not be the off-taker of the energy at the building, so they have tenants. And there was a split incentive there, which didn't encourage the building owner to move forward with solar projects. Now the building owner can potentially get a revenue through leasing their rooftop to a third-party system owner. And then that system owner establishes a new account with Austin Energy, and that it's a generation account. So they're generating into our system, and then we make the standard offer payment to the generator based on their production. So I'll pause there. Any questions about that? Hopefully you're all familiar with it, but if we have newcomers, happy to answer questions. All right, move on.
Oh, sorry, real quick, Kaiba asks, how many megawatts did you say are under construction and expected to be completed this fall?
I'm not sure about the amount expected to be completed this fall, but it's 8.43 that are
Encumbered.
currently under construction, encumbered, so meaning they could be under construction. I do anticipate some projects being done before the end of December, but I can't say exactly how much that will.
These commercial projects all have a longer timeline to get the tax credit, right?
That's correct. I'm going to go over that in a couple slides, so we'll get there.
But there's not a land rush right now to get everything done on the commercial side this year.
I mean, it depends, and I'll kind of go through that. But yeah, commercial projects can take a while. And so I think for some of them, yeah, they're rushing at this point, just because they want to be safe and make sure they hit that 2027 deadline. I'll talk to you about it in a minute. So before I get there, let's go over the components of the standard offer. So essentially what we're doing to determine the standard offer rate is Austin Energy is looking on an annual basis at our avoided costs. And right now, the way we determine avoided costs is based on ERCOT energy savings. So for every kilowatt hour that we produce within the distribution grid, that's a kilowatt hour that we don't have to buy off of the ERCOT market at our load zone price. So that's number one. Number two, our transmission cost benefits. So as the production on our system is producing during the 4 CP times, it is reducing our load during those times. 4 CP is basically the highest demand day on the 4 summer months. And that's a utility's participation in market on those particular days during those particular times, then sets the transmission costs for the utility for the following year. So to the extent that we can avoid having demand on those times, we reduce our transmission costs for the following year, and then that gets passed on through here. And then it's similar with ancillary services. So we have a certain amount of requirement for ancillary services. We can reduce that requirement through solar. That saves us money. So looking at these costs over time, you'll see that in 2022 and 2023, they were particularly high. And that is a result of having scarcity on the ERCOT market. And that scarcity drives the price up, which then drives the value of solar up. And so you can see 24 was a really mild year. And so that price was much lower in 24. 25 so far, while it's seen the most consumption of any other year, it hasn't had the demand spikes that really drive market prices upwards. So we're not anticipating a super high value year for FY25. We won't know that until we do the analysis. And so those numbers will come out probably in January or February. And then the rate will change in March of 2026 to then reflect all 5 years of these values. Currently, it only reflects the first 3 in this chart. Any questions about the rate? Right. So it's pretty straightforward. And the most important thing about the rate, at least from the utilities perspective, and I think for y'all as well, is that it reflects our avoided cost. And as such, we can continue to maintain this rate into perpetuity without negatively affecting our customers' costs. So that gives it that sticking power. It's where this has buy-in up and down the utility, so that I don't see this getting challenged and taken away at any point in the future, as long as we maintain that structure.
See 25 being similar to 24? Or do you-
It's hard to say, but yeah, it could be, because we haven't had any big scarcity events that have really driven the market up. And there are times when, when the generation is not meeting demand on its own, and they have to like fire up peaking power plants and signal those peakers to come online, the price starts to go up in the ERCOT market. And then it gets to a price point where they're like, okay, it's going to make me money if I put my peaker online. And then they ramp up those peakers, they meet the need, they make their money, they go away, the price goes back down, right? And so it's really about how many times that happens, and the average ERCOT market price that's correlating with the time that we're producing solar. So we're looking at the solar curve, on through a day, and we're looking at the ERCOT price curve through a day too. And we're looking at each value for every hour, and then that helps us determine what our avoided cost is. Energy we didn't have to buy. So, on the tax incentives. So, as you know, through the so-called beautiful bill, the federal tax incentives for solar are being phased out on a very accelerated schedule. So residential tax credits will go away at the end of December. So that's the 25D tax credits. And then, but the commercial tax credits, 45Y and 48E, both continue on for a limited time, but they do continue on. So solar projects that begin construction or have a 5% investment that are under 1.5 megawatts can be eligible for safe harboring. If they are safe harbored, then you get an extra 4 years. And otherwise, if it's interconnected by December of 2027, then it's eligible. So I'll just preface this with, I'm not a tax advisor, so this is just based off of information from the Clean Energy Business Network. But this is how we understand it today. So to answer your question, Al, like, is it urgent for commercial projects? Well, if they don't think they're going to be able to get the safe harboring, and that leaves, from today, it leaves like 2 years and a couple of months. Now, you might think, well, that's enough time. Yeah, but it is, but you have to consider like moving the project through board approval at, for certain organizations, and the procurement of the equipment and potential delays in the pipeline, and, unforeseen issues, things like that. Like, people are starting to get on it, and with good reason.
But the theoretical model where we would, some developer would buy panels and put them on houses, that would still be a commercial project, would it be under this accelerated timeline?
Right, yeah. So the key thing here is that for the standard offer residential, the ownership stays on a commercial book. So you're looking at the 48E really. And those timelines apply. So you could have a residential hosted system that's still eligible for the tax credit after December of this year.
Right.
Because they're leveraging it through a commercial partner.
It's still a very tight timeline to wind up a program like
It
that.
absolutely is. And, you know, like one of the approaches that we're trying to get to, I guess I'll get to it in a minute. I won't jump ahead because then I'll get off. So just to get a quick recap here about, we've had some stakeholder meetings. We've met a couple times with a finance focus group. We've done a residential survey. We've got another one that's about to go out. And we have a goal of determining a viable approach by the end of this year, which is in a few days. I think we're getting close to there. We're not quite there all the way yet, but we're definitely making good progress. And we see a potential launch of this program in FY26. So the survey results, and I've showed you this a little before, but it didn't have as many respondents. I think it had like 100 last time we looked. So now we're up to 324. No big changes. You know, customers are still interested in purchasing panels, but you'll see it seems like they're a bit more interested in a program where they don't have all the upfront costs. And so that's compelling to this effort. And so this is one of the things that, you know, that keeps us going. If we would have seen different results here, we might have been discouraged some, but this is kind of what we expected to see. And so, you know, it's just encouraging us to keep going. So in the financial focus groups, we've looked at, you know, I think the general premise of all of this and the reason we didn't roll out residential to begin with, one of the reasons is that it's going to be harder to gain those economies of scale, and definitely on a per project basis. So, you know, we're trying to figure out, okay, well, what's going to make this pencil? What's going to make this program offering viable? If Austin Energy were to come out today and say, okay, residential standard offer programs open, we're changing the minimum from 50 kW down to 3 kW. We wouldn't anticipate having any program if that was the case without any other mechanism to help it work. So, you know, so we're trying to look at, like, what can we do to make this work? What are the different approaches we can take? What are some other, you know, investments from the utility that can be made, or maybe not financial investments, but any kind of help with marketing or aggregation or anything like that. So these are the kind of things that we're looking at. We kind of determined that in order to get some kind of economies of scale to get us closer between the price that Austin Energy is willing to pay for energy and the cost of the system would be to, you know, provide a mechanism to aggregate customers. Austin Energy assistance and customer acquisition could also lower the price point. So if we had a program where y'all are just out there under your own names without Austin Energy support, trying to push the program, that's one thing. But if we can kind of co-brand or, you know, whatever we're able to do for Austin Energy to help with the procurement of those customers, then that reduces the costs. And increases the chance of viability. Another thing we want to look at potentially is adding batteries. We think that while that may not strengthen the return on investment proposition for a customer, batteries add value to the customer, and that's in the form of resiliency. And Austin Energy is interested in leveraging customer-owned batteries or third-party owned batteries to help us achieve efficiency on the distribution grid and, increase well, extrapolate value from the batteries through arbitrage or non-wires alternatives approaches, things like that. So there's ways to get avoided costs out of the batteries. Austin Energy is interested in determining how to best do that most optimally to gain the most avoided costs, and then developing a rate that would promote that. We're not there yet. We're moving in that direction. We're working on understanding those values, but it's still a ways out. It could be a complementary product in the future to the residential standard offer. And so by that, I mean, it could stand on its own to be a battery standard offer. It could potentially be a battery and solar standard offer, or you could just have the solar standard offer. They could work independently, but would also work as complementary to each other. So we're continuing to resolve associated questions. What's that battery program design going to be? We're getting there. It's going to take us a while, but we are on the path. And how will community solar program be redesigned, and could that help? And I think that the answer is yes there. Real quick, the community solar program is currently based off of a portfolio that has fixed cost. So we're able to have an offering with our customer that basically fixes a portion of their bill, which then has at time it could equal benefits to them, like a hedging type of benefit. But initially it comes at a premium. But as we start to modify the community solar portfolio with these standard offer projects, now we have a variable rate that tracks with our avoided costs. So it's not like we have the utility has some future hedging benefit that we can pass on to customers. So we need to kind of step back, rethink that. Currently, we think that looks like a floating premium to a customer. So they don't really have the hedging benefit. They're basically buying the renewable energy at a premium. We know that customers are willing to do that. We have close to 20,000 customers doing that currently with Green Choice. And so we are relatively certain that we could do the same with community solar. That would allow us to generate a revenue by the amount of those premiums that the customers pay. We could potentially take that revenue and find a way to reinvest it into the development of the residential standard offer program by potentially passing some kind of benefit on directly to the customer on their bill, which then would alleviate some of the pressure of the third party to provide that benefit to the hosting company. Any questions about that? I said a lot.
There's one question in the chat. Oh, do you want to go first?
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. Has AD considered participating in ERCOT's aggregated DER program or other virtual power plant programs? The value of distributed energy resources, especially but including smart thermostats, new participation in ancillary services, markets, and energy.
Absolutely. So we have demand response programs currently. They include thermostats, electric vehicles, water heater timers, and they can and likely will include batteries as well. That said, we've also looked at ADER, but the ADER program on the ERCOT market in ERCOT allows a third party to leverage some of the benefits from the ERCOT market, some of the avoided cost benefits. But as we are a vertically integrated utility owning generation, transmission, distribution, and the retail electric provider for our customers, we are able to leverage more benefits than they do through ADER. So it wouldn't really behoove us to participate in ADER because we would be leaving benefits on the table potentially. So, that said, what we're in the process of doing is acquiring a third party to do an analysis to help us determine when and where the benefits are and how to extrapolate those in the most efficient way possible to create the most avoided costs so that we can then put that forward to our customers through a battery standard offer program or something similar. Al?
I just wanted to chime in and say, I think it's super important that the community solar program premium somehow clearly aim at creating some more solar locally, that it doesn't just go into a pot and be part of it, reported as $5 million, that it actually creates something. So
I
I'm glad to
agree.
hear you say that. And it doesn't have to be, if community solar through the standard offer is sort of self-sustaining, then that money could go to the residential standard offer or something. I mean, that's cool, as long as it clearly, the guy who's paying the premium, like I did at La Loma, visualizes that, hey, this money is going to something. It's not just I'm paying a little extra.
Yeah, well, I mean, okay, I agree. I'm not sure about the La Loma statement. Because in that,
Well,
I-
La Loma, the
it's a
vision
different
was,
type of
it
program.
was offsetting the lower income side of the equation. It wasn't really.
as
creating-
well as the premium cost that we paid for that up front. And so you hedged for a while at
Yeah.
least. And so that's, where that sets up a different scenario.
Oh, yeah, I know.
But yeah, I think that this program intends to do that.
But given that you have a variable cost, instead of a PPA, that
Right.
extra 3 or 4 cent, whatever it is always going to be there. And
There's no
I just
extra,
want the
that's the
customer
thing.
to
It's
say,
like,
okay, I'm getting something for this. I'm pushing the ball forward. With
yeah. So the difference here is that the portfolio isn't at a premium for Austin Energy.
Right.
So it's not like we're going out to customers and saying, hey, you guys make up the difference so that we can make the project work in the first place. We're saying, hey, we got this project for free. So or not for free, but at a net zero cost. So if we have a program, like any benefits that come in through the community solar program, it only makes sense to reinvest them and to build, because the idea here is to have a community solar program that builds a portfolio of renewable projects. Environment.
Just for that to be clear and out there and visible is good.
Yes, I totally agree, and that's how we should message it. Yeah, for sure. And I get that, there are different perceptions of how green choice is working. And so I get that as well. But this is not green choice. This is community solar. This is a fresh start for us, and we're going to get out the gate right on it. Okay. So one of the proposed approaches, and one that we're really exploring, is for us to do an RFQ. Essentially, it's like an RFP, but we're not purchasing. We're basically looking for qualified participants who we can contract with. And so these are solar developers that are interested in owning a residential standard offer portfolio. So we would say, okay, solar developers, tell us how much you can do. Allow them to kind of bid into an amount of megawatts. And then we enter into a kind of fulfill or kill type of scenario with them to say, okay, we're giving you the green light for X number of megawatts. And, then that they move forward earnestly to try to achieve that. And so hopefully this gives the respondents the tools that they need to go and procure some safe harboring, so that they would, instead of having just until December of 2027 to projects, they could have in 4 years from the time that they are able to safe harbor. And let me know if I'm misunderstanding any of that. But I think that's how we're moving forward. And there may be some, details that need to shift there. But the general idea is that if a company has this intent from the utility and agreement to be the off-taker of a certain number of projects, then they can take that, go get it financed, do what they need to do to get the safe harboring, get a longer timeline to install all this stuff, and potentially make this a viable product through aggregation. Other things that could happen to make that pencil out, there could be some co-branding with the utility so that we can help with the customer procurement side of things. We know that we have a lot of power there, and if we put out some limited but good marketing, we can generate, just like CPS did with their program, we could generate a ton of interest really quick. So
You could have multiple participants under that same umbrella.
that's right. We could give, allocate X megawatts to A company, X megawatts to B company, X megawatts to C company. And they can all go towards that approach. Meanwhile, as an alternative path, we could just say, hey, this is open, and if a company can go aggregate their own, without going through that RFQ process, then, so like more power to them. But, I have a feeling that that's just going to be really hard to pencil, but I think we're going to open that path anyway. And then additionally, we're also considering a third path, which would be leasing. So we currently don't allow leasing for our customers, and that's because the typical solar lease is actually a PPA, where a customer is making a flat monthly payment, and then they're getting a true up at the end of the year based on kilowatt hours. So it's payment per kilowatt hours. That's PPA. So, but if we can work with the lease providers to restructure their lease, to have some other type of guarantee to the customer that protects them from underperforming systems while not running afoul of the PPA and the designation, then we could potentially open a leasing program as a third option for our local contractors to stay in business. Changes from the federal. And we will have some stakeholder meetings about leasing coming up. Forward to that. You want to run the evaluation? Okay. And with that, well, first I'll pause. Any questions, comments, concerns?
Just one quick question. So you do not intend to issue an RFP? The RFQ will be the only solicitation?
Because we're not purchasing the power through the procurement. We're purchasing the power through the rate. And so it's just a different procurement method and what we've been advised to do from our procurement.
That should speed.
Pardon?
I imagine that should speed things up significantly.
It does, yes, because then we don't have to go through the processes of. Any other questions? And before we get going on this, I'll just say, all that said, we still have work to do on the consumer protection side of things, as we get closer to our approach. And, that can happen in tandem with other efforts, but I don't want to lose sight of that. That's super important to us. It's super important to our customers. So give it up to Sam.
All right, so something we've been discussing is metering when it comes to these programs. Front of the meter, behind the meter, with solar, with batteries, X, Y, and Z. So we're trying something a little bit different here. Said,
Well,
I think we kind of don't have much time to go through the stuff that we put into this today. That will be first on our agenda as we have another stakeholder meeting in the very near future. We're trying to get this rolling as soon as possible, but we know, we have to move along in steps to get there. So that said, Sam's going to be sending out another invitation to another stakeholder meeting, probably within the next 2 or 3 weeks, or to have that meeting within the next 2 or 3 weeks. He'll be sending out the invitation within the next week or so. We'll pick up where we left off. Feel free to go in here and put in more things. We can leave it open for them to add to it, or how do we want to do that?
yeah, let's leave it open right now, for whoever wants to.
Okay.
For the next.
We'll leave it open for the next
Yeah.
few days for y'all to go in and put in your ideas.
Well, I mean, I have to close out the meeting, but I can send what we have out as both an image if you want. I can summarize it as well. And it does have like a Teams file, which you can use for sticky notes. It's a little cumbersome. But you can get
We'll
an idea of
explore the
where we are.
functionality of this tool and try to figure out a way that you guys can get input in the interim. So thank you for this meeting. Your input's super valuable to us as we move forward on this, and we look forward to engaging with you in the near future.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, y'all.
Good night.